Weapons of mass destruction have been used and optimized over the last 100 or so years, and have killed hundreds of thousands. And over this time, a number of debates on the ethical proportions of WMDs have taken place. In this video, I will be exploring two ways of looking at the use of WMDs, and asking the question, should WMDs be used in combat? To answer this question, two cases of weapons of mass destruction will be looked at. To get started, we must first look at what a weapon of mass destruction is. Wikipedia puts it beautifully. A weapon of mass destruction is a nuclear, radiological, chemical, biological, or any other weapon that can kill and bring significant harm to numerous individuals or cause great damage to artificial structures, natural structures, or the biosphere. One type of chemical weapon is mustard gas. First used in combat in World War I, this weapon of mass destruction causes blistering on the skin and in the lungs. This often results in a long and painful death. After the Great War, the Geneva Protocol prohibited chemical warfare. Despite this, mustard gas and other forms of chemical warfare continue to be used against enemies that don't have such capabilities. Saddam Hussein was born on the 28th of April, 1937. 12 years after the Geneva Conventions were signed. He became the Prime Minister of Iraq on the 16th of July 1979, becoming one of the world's most feared dictators of his time. On the 16th of March 1988, one of the greatest atrocities that would happen under the leadership of Saddam Hussein occurred. Over 5 hours, bombs that contained mustard gas as well as other chemical agents would be used on civilians who lived in Halabja, a small city in East Iraq. It was the largest attack on a civilian population using chemical weapons. 2 days before the attack, the Iranians, in an alliance with other Kurdish factions, had taken the city from Iraq. This attack was to repel the Iranians from Halabja during the late stages of the Iraq-Iran War as part of the Anfal campaign, led by Ali Hassan al-Majid on the orders of Saddam Hussein. It is rather hard to justify these actions, but we can turn to ethics to try and justify them. Duty-based ethics is all about the human morale, telling truth and acting as though you think all of humanity should act. A duty-based ethicist would not kill people, under any circumstances. Most consequentialists would kill people if it meant bettering the world. They weigh the good outcomes and the bad outcomes, and pick the action which results in the most good. From a military perspective, it makes sense, inflicting maximum casualties on an enemy while suffering close to no casualties. Consequentialists would argue that the use of chemical weapons would be for the greater good if it caused less deaths overall. On a more detailed inspection, it is realized that the suffering caused from these chemical weapons might outweigh the deaths of an infantry invasion of Halabja. This is a common argument presented by consequentialists when regarding weapons of mass destruction. Looking through a cultural lens, we gain a greater understanding of what on earth was going through these people's minds. Saddam Hussein was a Sunni Muslim. One of their main beliefs was that you could only be redeemed by your belief in Allah, and that Allah will choose who to redeem. These beliefs were frequently misinterpreted such that they would kill others who did not believe like them. This is often attributed to the tensions between Iraq and Iran. Chemical warfare was used extensively throughout the Iran-Iraq War. This might have made the people desensitized to these horrible acts, and slowly used more against civilians. Ali Hassan al-Majid was found guilty of ordering the attack and sentenced to death. Towards the end of World War II, Japan were being pushed back into the Pacific Theater. The Allies trying to push them back all the way to the mainland. They got to the island of Okinawa, but they suffered enormous casualties. The Japanese believed that to die in battle was the most honorable way to die. This caused extreme loss of life for the Americans and the Japanese. On the 6th and 9th of August 1945, the only use of nuclear weapons in combat was recorded. Under the leadership of President Truman, 2 weapons of mass destruction were used against Japan, killing up to 226,000 people, who were mostly civilians. This resulted in the surrender of Japan. Like the previous case, we see 2 views emerge from the use of weapons of mass destruction. One duty-based, which says that any form of killing is bad, and the other, consequentialist, which says that the use of weapons of mass destruction will lower the overall death toll. We even see similar military tactics emerge, where civilian death toll is order of magnitudes higher than if weapons of mass destruction were not used. The use of weapons of mass destruction would prevent the user from losing many of their civilians and military. Looking through a cultural lens once more, we see that the Americans were facing heavy casualties. People wanted the war to end, and from their perspective, using weapons of mass destruction and ending many of the enemy's civilians' lives would be the best solution to have the Japanese surrender. Both duty-based and consequentialist ethics don't look for the use of weapons of mass destruction in mundane scenarios, but it is clear there are differences between each philosophy regarding weapons of mass destruction. In a duty-based world, all weapons of mass destruction would be destroyed, even if they were for self-defense. But unfortunately, we live in a world where most militaries are consequentialist. My personal opinion is that WMDs should be limited and controlled by multiple countries. This is a near duty-based way of looking at things. I think in some scenarios WMDs are necessary, but in others cause unnecessary suffering and pain for both uninvolved civilians and military staff alike. There are many other ethical issues concerning weapons of mass destruction, and the two examples used are just a small look into the world of the use and distribution of weapons of mass destruction. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.